Take a breath, David King and Ben Dixon. It will be Richmond versus GWS next Saturday in the grand final. The Tigers were too strong for Geelong, winning by 19 points. But just a few minutes ago, we sat up there and the Giants held off Collingwood by 4 points after leading by 33 points. It's been some weekend of footy. Who wants first crack?
Well, I'll have first crack. We've just seen an unbelievable game of football and an upset. Everyone had Collingwood penciled in. The Giants have come through again. They've travelled to Brisbane and got the job done. They've travelled to the MCG and got the job done. But my first crack is I think we're looking at another three-peat with Richmond. What I saw on Friday night...
With Richmond?
With Richmond.
So this is the first one coming up of the three?
This is the first of three. No, I'm telling you right now because 17, 18 they missed in a prelim.
Yep.
And 19, they're the heavy favourites in this. I think what they've got system-wise, who they've got into that footy club and how they've retained the players they've got, they're on a big ride here because halfway through the year, they lost those players, but their system stood up.
So you're predicting a three-peat before we've got one?
Yes. Well, you know what? You've got to make a big call, and it's a big crack.
2 weeks ago, you said Brisbane are unbeatable. And now you've jumped off them, and not only for this campaign, for the next two campaigns.
2020 and 2021.
Opportunities missed.
Okay, yep.
Geelong, 7, missed 8. 9, obviously missed, and then went 11. Yeah. So the Hawks, 13, 14, they've got the Hawks about them. Right now. No, they have.
You're losing it.
They have.
You are losing.
Were they super impressive Friday night?
Yeah, but you're talking about 3 years' time. You're saying three back to back to back.
Absolutely. Well,
gee.
Can we get this in the time capsule? And on first crack at the end of 2021,
I want it in the time capsule right now. Because if I don't say it now, I would have kicked myself. That's why. Okay. Sometimes I talk.
Yep.
And I love the fact that I've put it out there.
I think you could say it after next weekend and no one else would be saying it yet. It's a long way down the track.
I'm not disrespecting the Giants in any way, shape or form, but they are another level.
Have they missed their three-peat opportunity? Should it have been 17, 18, 19?
Yeah, I thought that, but I'm thinking now they're as strong and they're a big destination club, and there was a key part missing, and they got it in Tom Lynch, and he stood up the other night. I'm just sometimes you sit and watch the footy and you go, hang on a minute, there's something special happening here, and I just think they are one of the biggest powerhouses now, and I think, no, actually, I'm pretty certain they're going to go. No, they're going to win next week. I'm pretty certain they're going to win next week. Yep. And then I can't see a lot's going wrong with the way they play.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to get the three-peat if they don't win next week.
We'll talk John Daly's one when he won the Masters. They asked him, can you go back to back? He goes, well, I'm the only player in the field that can.
We'll talk about Richmond and Geelong and what's ahead for the Tigers a little bit later on. Kingy, what's your first crack?
My first crack is to those that have come hard for Leon Cameron. I think it's been the most overanalyzed coaching role in the land. We've watched him with this elite talent. Is he getting the best out of them? Have they underachieved? Finals are hard to win. We know that. We just heard from Nathan Buckley talk about this campaign running aground just because of a couple of poor quarters. You know, the same thing happens to every club along the journey. So I think we know that he plays different. He wants to play a different plan. That's who he is. That's his style. Yes, it's score out of the back half. It won't meet any of the premiership profiling that the boys have been doing on the couch. They won't. That's just not how they want to play. Their point of difference is ball use. And because they've got elite ball users, they try and cash in on that. They challenge the opposition to defend their elite ball use. Even again today, they've kicked 4 goals out of the back half, 4 out of the forward half. Now, most teams would be 6 and 2, 6 in the forward half, 2 out of the back half. Great stoppage team. They humiliated Collingwood's midfield today. And this is the midfield that we've been talking about all year for the Pies that are going to be the reason why they win the big one. Well, they got embarrassed today. They got smashed when the ball was there to be won for the first 3 quarters. Yes, they turned it around in the last quarter, but there's a lot of players be walking away saying, okay, Zach Williams has probably played 4 games in the midfield for the last 18 months. And yet he comes in, has 10 clearances and absolutely brains us. How does this happen? There'll be a lot of sleepless nights, I think, for that Collingwood midfield over the next couple of weeks.
So getting back to your point, the haters for Leon Cameron.
Yeah.
He's gone prelim, semi, prelim, now he's into a granny. Does he have to win it for that to be signed, sealed and delivered?
Does he have to? I don't think you ever have to win a grand to make a grand final is incredibly tough. Do you underachieve if you lose a grand final, one given game?
They finished 6th.
Yeah.
Didn't they? At the home and away season.
They did, yeah. And we talked about this last week, given the back half of the year where they had to basically manage players to the line. The week before the finals, that bye came at a great time for them. But this is more about Leon and his courage and his conviction to stay to his plan. This is how I want to play, and I'm not going to listen to the outside noise. I'm not changing for anyone. You can sack me if you like, but this is who we're going to be. And I think we saw it tonight.
Yep.
That was dangerous.
So let's dive into tonight's game. Unbelievable. There's a lot of talking points. We'll talk about Arc. We'll talk about a couple of the decisions were made and some injuries. But how did you read the performance by the Giants to get the leg up in the third quarter and get over Collingwood and then the Pies came back?
Very simple for mine. What they did to the Bulldogs in the first quarter, they just put themselves in the hole.
The Pies, you mean, what they did to the Pies? Yep.
They literally, the way the Giants started against the Bulldogs, they set the scene for their final series. They just were attacking. They were just going to throw themselves at everything. They're contested. They want to belt teams up now.
Yeah, I do.
That's been missing, I think, in their game. But they're playing that brand as good as I've ever seen it. And on a night like tonight, King, it's not going to be a lace-out sort of ball movement style. So that in itself probably worked in the Giants' favour more than Collingwood. For mine.
I think their desire to stay in the game early. Often in finals like this, you can come and try and do a bit too much, try and score, try and play the perfect game. They were prepared to just make it a dour struggle for the first 40 minutes and see where that left them. But again, it all comes back to the midfield. It really does. And their midfield today was way too tough.
But a midfield without Canelio.
Yeah.
A midfield, or Toby Green's more of a forward, but a midfield without stars, wasn't it? Callan Ward's been out all year.
No Whitfield, no Green.
Whitfield.
I mean, they're the class. But I looked at their back line, and we were talking about when Phil Davis come from the field. Okay, what does this do? The ball went down a couple of minutes later. Reed takes a mark, goes back, kicks a goal. You say, okay, they're going to be in a bit of trouble down back. But Taylor was fantastic. Haynes has been an exceptional performer over the last 5 or 6 weeks. And I just think their back line said, well, we're pretty settled here. We're right to go. Shaw was fantastic today.
Yep.
He's been heavily criticised over the previous couple of weeks. So I just thought they found a way to stay in the game when they were struggling, and that just the composure to know the situation, Dicko, that last 2 minutes, they just forced stoppage after stoppage after. They just knew that by keeping the ball in close, it'd stop Collingwood's opportunities.
And we used to think the Orange Tsunami was their ball movement, how they would just go bang and accelerate with, hand and foot and just tear games apart. Well, I think their tsunami now is their contested ball and their ability to crash and bash. And like you said, that last 2 minutes, Jacob Hopper, a young boy who's coming into that team, like crashing in, just knowing the situation, holds them in pretty good stead.
They've done it twice against the Pies, haven't they, in 2 completely different ways. 50 points up at quarter time, and now this. Is an incredible performance. But what does it say about the Pies and Nathan Buckley's tenure as a senior coach of this club that still doesn't want to flag despite seemingly being in this window for a couple of years?
It's tough,
What do you make of that?
No, it should be nothing, no question marks on Nathan Buckley.
I'm not questioning Nathan Buckley, but I'm saying they had a good chance last year and we all thought they'd win it. We thought, geez, they're going to beat GWS in the prelim, but they've failed to do so twice. Tough game, but I thought the Pies would win tonight. I thought they'd win the grand final last year.
So
did you not?
So why would Nathan escape scrutiny?
Well, because he's taken that team to a grand final and now a prelim.
But scrutiny doesn't have to mean you want him sacked. It just means that I think they should have won the flag.
I don't think he was
last
our coach tonight.
Well, I wonder when you look at the tagging assignments from the Giants to
Well,
Collingwood.
you're big on this tagging.
Yeah, I am, and we talked about it last week. Tagging's back. The Premiers last year tagged right through the finals. They tagged Ruckman. They tagged gun on ballers.
So what happened tonight with the tagging?
Well, tonight they had multiple tags. They did a job on side bottom. They did a job on Pendlebury, and which flipped to Treloar for patches of the game. So they couldn't get as creative in the midfield as what they'd like to be. Collingwood. They're a better team with the uncontested side of the game, I think. They like to spread the ball and then go forward. Get wide and then go forward. But they couldn't get that going today. So I think, in terms of just sheer coaching, what Leon did today, I think. Now this is no slight on Nathan at all. But what did Nathan do about Zach Williams? What did he try and do at any stage to arrest the midfield situation? I know Crisp went in there and was very good. But what else did they try and do? What did they do with side bottom to get him into the game? That's what we're looking for.
Yeah, those are the question marks.
They're the little things. And at the end of the day, this was their big opportunity.
Yeah,
it's a long way back.
That's my point.
There's no guarantees in footy that you get another opportunity next year just because you're a good team.
That's what you said last week, Kingy. There are no guarantees that they will get back there next year. End quote. You said that about Brisbane. And the same applies to the Magpies, presumably.
Yep. But they got a great list profile in terms of age. I think if you look at the lineup tonight, I was just having a look earlier. If you look at their list, they only had 3 players play today that are 30 years of age: Pendlebury, Main, and Ben Reid. So the rest have still got time.
Well, why can't they three-peat, Dicko?
Yeah.
Who's that?
Collingwood. They got a young group.
Well,
Yeah, they'll be
can't
up there again. They're
Yeah.
not going to drop out.
be
There's
hard
no
to
way.
Be hard to three-peat given they're not in the grand final.
Exactly
Yeah,
right.
from next year.
But you laugh at that.
Yeah.
But who would have picked that back when Hawthorn did it at 13?
Yep.
True?
Yep.
So you can have your little smug look on your
So who-
faces, you two blokes.
Yeah, no, we have to wait 2 years to be proven.
See,
right
I can
wrong.
throw it out there a pretty
Yeah.
long way, can't I?
Who was a better performance? Was Richmond a better performance than the Giants, or how do you read the two prelims head-to-head?
I was a big rap on the way Richmond fought that game out.
They were poor for the first half.
They were really poor. But then they said, right, let's knuckle down. And they put them to the sword. They put Geelong to the sword. They really did. And the Giants, I think Roosie touched on in the post-game, they looked like the petrol light was on and Collingwood just seized that opportunity. But they'd done enough. But had they or not?
What about
depending on the arc.
the bye
Yeah, we'll talk about
pre-finals? Do you think that has an impact on teams fronting up that's after that second week off?
Well, it helped the Bulldogs win one, and it's probably helped the Giants get to a grand final.
Yeah.
So it's going to suit some and not suit others. So you're not here to please everyone.
Collingwood have 2 weeks off in a 3-week space. Did it make them sluggish today? Richmond were clearly sluggish.
Does
last
anyone
night.
truly know the answers to those questions?
Well, you don't, because it depends on the profile of your team at that stage.
And how the individuals feel.
Exactly. If you're up and about, like the Bulldogs couldn't have hit the finals any harder in form.
But I think it's a discussion. I think
It is. I'm not saying it's
Are we
not.
getting the best football in preliminary final week, given that most likely 2 of the combatants have had 2 weeks off out of, or they have. They clearly have.
2 of the last 3
Two of
off.
the last 3 weeks off.
What's the main objective for having that by then?
Well, I think it's a discussion. Are we getting the best games of football in the 3rd week of our finals?
I think the objective is twofold. One for the AFL is to allow or teams to play their best players in round 23, which arguably doesn't happen anyway when they rest players like Essendon
happened
did.
once.
Happened once. And the second one is to get all these functions and social events into that week so we can focus on finals footy as soon as the finals start.
What's more important, seriously?
Well, the footy is more important.
The product.
So you just come up with 2 pretty poor points.
Yeah.
Really?
I agree then they're poor points. I don't like the bye before finals at all. I think we're ready to go and it sort of saps the life out of us a little bit, doesn't it? But does it lose teams games? I'm not sure.
Well, I think
It's going to help some and it's not going to help others.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that. I think that the 2 teams that have had the double bye in a 3-week space have performed really poorly. Have started poorly. They're out of rhythm. I think it's something we probably could look at down the path.
Well, it's interesting with the Geelong. They're split round. So when they come off the bye, they were like 0-11.
Yeah, they've been win-loss for 14 weeks, I think.
Yeah.
Win-loss for 14 weeks.
So it's going to,
They haven't won 2 games in a row and they finished top of the ladder for 14 weeks. Let's flip the result on its head tonight. Let's imagine Collingwood win and GWS lose. And ARC is at the top of the agenda of this show, isn't it? Because that was a pretty ordinary mistake tonight if we believe the vision was correct.
if we believe.
Well,
So we don't have any substantial evidence to say that was...
we don't know what the
they
score reviewer looked at. We only know that the score reviewer should have looked at that vision and the score reviewer, as a result, should have overturned that decision. And it should have been touched.
Will there be a lot of rich lawyers in town if that happened? Because...
They're saying officially insufficient evidence
Yeah, to sort of
to overturn it.
simplify this a little bit, the guy who's making the decision, he selects which camera angles he wants to see.
Yeah.
Say there's a dozen cameras on that action, that decision. He might choose cameras 1, 2, 3, 4, and not look at the other
Maybe.
8.
Yeah.
So he's clearly chosen the wrong angles.
Well, we don't know what he's looked at. Presumably, because it's insufficient reason to turn it over, he's looked at that vision and believes that you can't actually overturn what we think we can see.
you reckon
I can't say with a straight face because it was so clearly touched. It was clearly a mistake. And if the AFL's backing it up, well, we can put down our pens and pencils and go home. This was clearly a mistake, wasn't it? And you could have whatever system you want. You could be at NASA.
I think it's undermanned.
And it's about the person making the decision in the end.
But it must be if everyone thinks that ball's touched on what we've seen. Everyone. The final angle that we're all looking at now,
Yeah.
I can't guarantee whether they've seen that angle or not. But why is there any possible chance that an angle is not viewed?
Yeah, how could they have not
Yeah.
seen it?
How could that be unsighted? If there's 12 angles need to be looked at, let's have 12 people or 6 people responsible for 2 angles, whatever numbers we need to get it right. There's no point being halfway with this. Either stick to your conviction and say the arc's going to be the answer, or if it's halfway, sack it.
It was conclusive.
He's actually just answered your own question. You said we're undermanned, but they should have someone there watching what we see on the television.
Yeah, but they've got to choose the right angles.
Yes.
So they've got to see them all.
They've got a couple of people there. They've got a Hawkeye person there. It's a big room designed specifically so this doesn't happen in a preliminary final or a grand final.
They've got a couple of vacancies this week.
You don't reckon they'll get a run?
Not a chance.
The other thing I just want to bring up quickly is why don't we know who these people are? Why can't we, like a cricket third umpire or other sports assistant referees, why can't they be accountable?
Because they've got to go down and get the paper in the morning, Tom.
Well, yeah, but
You know who they are.
no, but I'm not at liberty to say at the moment because I feel like they're
Why
not
not?
public figures. But a cricket
It's not
third
witness
umpire,
protection,
a cricket
mate.
third umpire
Can't you mention it?
makes decisions for run-outs and
names.
LBWs. Why can't we do the same with AFL? Why can't we have someone that we know sitting there and we go, this is the person that's making the call, and we hear that person's voice?
Here's your moment, Tom. Name them.
Not naming him. I'm not quite that brave at the moment.
If I was in witness protection, I want Tom on my side.
And I'm not going to say any more on that. We are asking fans, Kingy and Dicko, to submit their Steel Blue Boots blue collar player of the weekend. Now you can tweet Fox Footy at Fox Footy now to win these Steel Blue Boots.
Nice.
If you listen to the podcast, you're going to miss out. But if you're watching on TV, you can listen to that. Now, they are heavy. Hold that for me.
You got these? I got a pair of these.
I actually don't have a pair, but I might take these home. These are 10 and a half? Yeah,
These
that's about
are
right.
These are outstanding, and I cut wood in these.
Yeah. Now, but do you want to know how you're going to win a pair of these?
How?
You got to tell us who you think was this weekend's blue collar player via Twitter at Fox Footy. Who is your blue collar player for the weekend?
Well, it's pretty obvious, really, on
Is it?
Friday night. Jack Graham. Who,
Oh, yeah.
who pops a shoulder and then just comes out and goes, nah, I'm not copping that. You know who does that?
Jack Graham.
No. Martin Riggs, off Lethal Weapon. So apparently
Hit a
they went
straight
down
jacket.
into the rooms and they had a filing cabinet there and he
Bang.
whacked it back in
Nice.
and said, I'm good to go.
Nice. Sam Taylor for me. I thought he was fantastic. When Phil Davis left that back line tonight, he stood up, he flew for his marks. It was just an awesome performance. That was a great, give it to any of those players really down back, but I thought Taylor was exceptional.
Awesome. All right. Well, remember to tweet Fox Footy to win these Steel Blue Boots before Dicko takes them home and gives them to someone for Christmas. That was risque. Great discussion, gentlemen. Let's talk about Richmond versus... Not to talk about Richmond versus Geelong. Yeah, let's talk about Richmond versus Geelong because this game was completely different to tonight's game yesterday evening and there's a lot of talking points. Where do you want to start? Kingy?
Well, I think we have to talk about Tom Lynch and that performance and what he's done to Richmond. I mean, we all knew what they were getting. There's so many different ways to look at this. We always come back to equalisation in the game. Is it fair that you can be at the top of the table having just won a premiership and got to a prelim, that you can get the best free agent acquisition there? What does that do for equalisation? But the second part of it, and the part that we touched on a couple of weeks ago, is Mark Blitzarves, and I'm fascinated by this guy. He's still playing on the wing, played on the wing again, so it's just something that I find staggering. Him as a wingman, how do they assess his performance as a wingman over the last couple of weeks? Because he had 10 disposals last night. He's not really a threat. He had a few shots at goals, but didn't convert any of them over the last fortnight. The perfect matchup was Tom Lynch. We all know that. He played on him last time in round 12 and kept him to 1 goal. And that was when Jack wasn't even playing that night.
Yep.
So he was the focal point. He was the number one target. 8 disposals and 1 goal. Why wouldn't you look at that matchup as a starter? Now, I heard Gary earlier today, and I agree, that they still had a strong lead at half-time, despite the fact that Lynch had hit the scoreboard, particularly in that first quarter. But surely you've got to start putting the clamps on what you know works. And I think that Blitzarves had done the job on Lynch. Why wouldn't you start him there?
So would you have made that from the start or would you have changed that?
Well, I think he did kick 2 quickly in that first quarter. So you had options to go to it if you felt the need. But I would have started it. Now this is
Yeah, of course.
This is not hindsight coaching this one because we've got evidence of this working.
Yep.
But I think the Blitzarves wing role has been a bust through this final series.
Yep. Let me read you a quote by Zach Toohey on 3AW yesterday. He was asked about why Blissarves didn't play in defence. He said, "It's really average punditry when you see some of the comments about Blissarves and where his best position is. Some of the things people say and don't see is criminal."
Yeah.
End quote. So whatever reasoning they have, and Chris Scott hasn't been able to justify it over the journey, and Zach Toohey wasn't able to justify it, except to say that we're all wrong and they're right. But the proof, as you're saying, was in the pudding last night. Tom Lynch kicked 5 goals and an all-Australian defender's up on the wing.
I think the fact of the matter is Blixarves has played some phenomenal roles. Like, he actually tagged Pendlebury one night in the middle of the ground, did an amazing job.
Yep.
So he's Mr. Fix-It. He really is for Geelong because he can play anywhere. He can play forward and do a good job. So what you're saying, King, is you're getting a big forward here who's started the game on fire. You put your best bloke on him who's got form on him that can clamp him. That's exactly what you're saying.
Well, Jack couldn't get near it last night, and the only man that was out of control
Was Tom.
They had a good matchup for.
Yeah.
And this is not flogging a dead horse. We review every game, right? It's particularly at the pointy end of the year. And I think that they would have to say, did we try and do too many things? Have we tried to have we outsmarted ourselves with a couple of these moves? And I think in the cool, clear light of day, not tonight, not last night, but in a couple of weeks' time, they'll probably say, I think that they would say, we probably went too far with a couple of these moves.
Yeah.
Now, they don't have to admit that publicly. And Chris has been smashed over the last couple of weeks.
By you.
But that's part of the gig. That's the role, isn't it? That's what we're here to do. And if it was Nathan Buckley would be saying the same thing. You're not immune to feedback if you take on these roles. So I think that the Blissarves magnet, I think will haunt Chris Scott at the end of this season. The season's over.
What do you think they were trying to achieve by playing him on the wing now?
I think that they were trying to get him to gaff last week. And Gaff, in the end, had 30 and kicked a couple of goals. I'm not sure what the reasoning was.
They had Joel Selwood on the
night.
wing for much of the season, though, didn't they? And he went inside the last couple of weeks.
Yep.
But they want another experienced player on the wing.
Maybe. I haven't heard a definitive reason as to why.
No, neither have I. We've just been getting told that we're wrong. And they don't have to tell us necessarily. And Chris Scott said that last night. That's for them to know and us not to know.
Absolutely.
But
He might have
asked.
played the winger corridor cover. You don't know because he can run.
Yeah.
Like we're talking about a steeplechaser that could win a gold medal.
But when it doesn't work, you open yourself up to these sorts of discussions.
Yeah. So what else didn't work last night? Because how did the Tigers get back from that deficit and win that game? What were the key points, Dicko?
I thought their ability to hunt round the ball. And what I mean by that is they've made their game so fanatical that when they're in congestion, they attack you. They literally do. They're fanatical.
Yeah.
And when they get on the outside, their handball game's as good as anyone. And I always refer it back to a side who's not playing now in the Bulldogs. They got it for the last month of footy, and they found the formula that worked. And they were the form team going into round 23. Everyone will catch on to the way Richmond play it, but they've had that system now for 3 years. So they're the best in the business. Once they hunt you and turn that ball over, they'll punish you. And they started to punish Geelong, and then Geelong started to go on the back foot a little bit. And that's when Richmond can just smell blood.
Their pressure lifted enormously.
It was huge.
They hunted a few bodies early in that third term. The captain was fantastic. He led the way. And I thought Shane Edwards was probably the reason why they got just some acts of sheer brilliance from Shane to set up goals. Dusty drifted forward and does what he always does, and that's hit the scoreboard. But you're right, it's that handball game. The game goes from just an average speed to just out of control when they hit one or two handballs. They explode through the corridor, and all of a sudden the opposition defence is under enormous pressure. It's beautiful to watch.
And it's organised chaos because if you watch them, they crisscross, they zigzag. When you're trying to defend that and running, you've got no idea. You can't defend it because if I've got space in front of me and I'm handballing, they're running like this. How do you defend that? And what happens is if you're coming on transition, Richmond are coming on transition and they're not using by foot to give the back line a look. So the opposition backline need to look. They turn their head. All they're doing is chasing forwards. And the handball game is confusion, and then they've got it down pat. That's why
Basher Hooley was fantastic, wasn't he, at that role?
Exactly right. So when you watch it, the system, always come back to it, and you don't want to break it down too much, but their system is very hard to beat.
It's going to win 3 in a row, apparently.
Hey, don't worry about that. Jared Healy might hook me. Everyone goes, you're mad. Well, I'll be mad in 3 years when I'm right.
You've heard the narrative about the Cats being called whingers, haven't you? And the fact they don't like the criticism and they...
I've never heard them called whingers.
Have you never heard anyone refer to them or Chris Scott as a whinger? No. I'm not saying they are, but I've sat on the bench the last 3 weeks doing radio. And 2 weeks ago, the whole bench was up in arms when Nick Maxwell went onto the field by a metre. And the AFL didn't have an issue with it. It was just an accident. It was not while the ball was in play. And last night there were 2 incidents which really made me think, this is interesting, this whole whinging narrative, whether it's fair or unfair. Because at one stage during the game, Jack Graham came to the bench injured. And he went off through the Geelong interchange gates. And something you're not allowed to do. But I would have thought in the old rules that would mean that Geelong get at least a free kick. They might even mean that Jack Graham can't come back on. Either way, it was ticked off. The AFL moves on. But there was a long discussion at quarter time between the Geelong officials on the bench and the umpires, effectively saying, how can he be allowed to do this? Then Chris Scott came to the bench at 3/4 time when Lachie Henderson kicked the goal and they thought it might have hit the post and it went upstairs. And he was unbelievably demonstrative towards the officials on the bench, arguing why he can't come on the field before the decision was made. And I just reckon it feeds this narrative that they're just a bit unhappy with the way things are working. And the main one, as we know, is they haven't been allowed to play finals at GMHBA Stadium. So that's 4 examples I can think of the top of my head over the last 3 weeks where the Cats just haven't been quite happy with what's been going on. And I don't know if it affected them, but I just don't think it's a good look for the club to be constantly complaining about particular things. Most of them, they have no control over.
Yeah, you make a lot of good points. I don't buy into the whinging as such. But it was interesting during the week when he touched on the fact that Richmond aren't going as well this time this year as they were last.
What did you make of that?
And that Geelong are a better team right now than where they were last year. And Damien just dusted it off. He didn't buy into it. He didn't get involved in the war of words. And he let their game plan do the talking. And in the end, they're just words. So you can get caught up in all that sort of stuff and think it has an effect on your team. I don't know if it does. If he thinks it works for Geelong, great. But outside looking in, you question whether it's all worth the energy.
That's exactly my point. Is it worth the energy, really, to complain about
but
those
where's
things?
the theatre in that too? Because guess what? Kevin Sheedy used to do that a lot.
Did he?
He did that a lot.
Yeah.
He'd fire one across the bow and just go, righto, what's going to come back?
And the Giants were doing that this week, I guess, as well.
I don't mind that from Chris Scott,
Yeah.
to be brutally honest, because sometimes, he'll back himself in and he'll obviously fire one and then just see if then it comes back.
Have you got confidence in Geelong being a top 4 team next year?
I'm actually not sure, to be brutally
Tim
honest.
Kelly, he'll go to one of the
Definitely
Perth
gone?
clubs. Yeah, he'll request a trade to West Coast. They'll try to get that done, but Freo still believe they're in the hunt. But I can't see him playing at Geelong next year. And then Gary Ablett's future's up in the air. It's a different look team.
Let's just say Gary plays. Let's not tire him off. Let's say he's playing.
Let's say he's playing.
And things stay relatively the same with the exception of Kelly and maybe Harry Taylor we hear is
He'll be the
moving
other
on.
one. Yeah.
I don't know with a couple of other
They'll probably get
Asian
Jack
stars.
Stephen in.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you have confidence that they're a top 4 team as you look at them today?
I don't think so. No, I really don't. I think their forward line needs some real work as well. I know they got Rowan, Dalehouse and Hawkins. Oh, yeah, but I'm talking about the guys they've got into that football club to help with their speed up front. Like, we talk about how important that forward half game is now. I think they've got to do a little bit of work on that front. And if Harry Taylor goes and Tim Kelly goes, then you've got to be able to fill. You've got to be able to fill those spaces.
Selwood played at 31 yesterday. Zach Tui will be 30 shortly. Henderson the same. Dangerfield 30 in April, I think.
So they're trying to hold on. Is that their game plan at the moment?
Well,
they haven't bottomed out.
No, they haven't.
There's no need for them to bottom out. We're not saying they have to rebuild or anything.
Yeah.
But are you confident that there's another campaign in this group? Is what we're saying. And I think you'd have to have some doubts. I think they've got to get pretty active in the free agency /trade.
What do they need then? I think they're going to get Jack Stephen for not much. That'll be a bargain if he plays good footy for them.
They need mids. They need wheels through the mid.
They need speed.
Well, he's got some speed.
They need speed.
They wanted Sean Higgins. They missed out.
Yeah.
They wanted Ruckman. Clearly, they wanted Todd Goldstein. Why is that? What don't they see in Zach Smith and Reece Stanley that they think they can get elsewhere?
They're just short of the mark.
Yep.
And when you get to this point of the season, all your flaws are exposed. And they've found a couple. I mean, Graham Myers was absolutely sensational yesterday. And I think they'll say, okay, he's going to be a 200 gamer for us in that forward flank, forward pocket type area. But Kelly's final series was amazing. With 31 and kick 3 yesterday. I mean, he's going to be incredibly difficult to replace. I mean, is he definitely gone? Is the question.
Well, until he actually requests the trade. But all the information I'm getting is that he will request a trade to West Coast. He's made up his mind.
But they didn't make it happen last year.
They didn't make it, but he was contracted last year. He's not contracted anymore beyond this year. So he's got a bit more bargaining power. I liked what Chris Scott said after the game about Tim Kelly. He's desperate to keep him, but I think there's an acceptance that they all know he's probably going to go. They're going to look for draft picks in return. This might give you an insight into where they're going. They want 3 picks in the top 30, Geelong. That's what they want to end up with at the draft.
3 and 30.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the other part about...
I think if he walks Kelly, if he walks and they get just picks back that don't go and become other star midfielders, I think as he walks, their top 4 chances walk.
And the other part about their ruckman debate, I don't think the ruckman's been any more important now than it is in previous years because of the rule changes and what's happening. Like the secondary ruckman, and I'm talking about the ruckman like a Brody going to hit and become that extra midfielder, that's so important these days. It's huge. And we criticised Mummy last week, and Stephen Martin had a real grip on that game.
So the ruckman's come today. Collingwood got smashed to clearances. I think Grundy had 10 of their 35 clearances. So the actual ruck position in isolation was a big win to Collingwood, but at ground level they got hammered. So it comes back to that discussion that we know Jared Healy's had a lot. Is it the actual ruckman and his tap work, or is it the guys at ground level?
Well, he says the most irrelevant most irrelevant stat is the hit out.
Yeah.
It means nothing. There's almost no correlation between pure hit outs and clearances and winning. Is that right?
I think hopefully Jared's watching. I don't think that's right.
No, it's about hit outs to advantage and hit outs to disadvantage. It's about where you hit the ball.
So I think you've got to have a pretty sound structure too around your stoppage.
It's about the
work.
midfielders.
So right. If you're Reece Stanley, would you stay at Geelong? I mean, is there an opportunity to? Clearly, there's not a lot of faith there. Clearly.
Yeah, well, the first final demonstrates that, doesn't it?
Yeah, so I think there'll be a fair bit of movement at Geelong.
He was reasonable, though, Reece Stanley, in his 2 finals, wasn't he?
Yep.
I think most clubs are going to be pretty active, let's be honest. I think the trade period's totally changed now. It has totally changed landscape. Free agency's started to get its teeth into everything, and I think the move now and loyalty, and that's out the window. We're in a business now. So like the NBA, we're on the move. And why wouldn't we be?
If only
We've just seen Tom Lynch come from the Gold Coast Suns, a wooden spoon, to possibly a flag.
Yeah,
so 3 flags.
This time last year.
3 flags, don't you worry about that.
This time last year, Tom Lynch was a Gold Coast player.
Guess what? Tom Lynch, 3-timer.
We'll finish on that note. We've got plenty more after this, including news, 2 coaching vacancies, Adelaide and Freo, and also an AFL Grand Final to look ahead to. That's even better. Dicko, you're talking about your favourite dim sims, but we're trying to talk about footy here, and we've got to give away these.
Yes.
Hold them up for us, please. So, Steel Blue Boots, Blue Collar Player of the Weekend. We've had 2 fantastic tweets come in. One from Dynamite Dons, who's going to win 1, and he said, Sam Taylor, a workmanlike performance, taking multiple intercept marks on a wet day, is becoming a very, very good player. So well done to KB, Dynamite Dons. And the other one we're going with...
You don't give away 2 individual boots, Tom.
No, you give away two pairs.
That putt's left to right. Why is that? Because you got 1 shoe on.
And the other one is Bizzle Shizzle, or Ben Shepherdson on Twitter. Who said Perryman out of you two?
I did.
Perryman played the game of his life this afternoon. Keeps stepping up. The grand final will bring out his best. Good country lad who's harder than a pair of steel blue steel cap boots. Nearly. Laughing emoji.
Just because it got some support. You didn't say Perryman. You said Jack Graham.
Oh, you did you?
You're claiming credit.
Perryman was my first one.
That means you have.
So well done to you two fantastic tweeters. Well done. Let's talk about this AFL Grand Final. Dicko, what do the Giants need to do to win the game?
They need to inject 3 guns. That's what they need to do. So the changes, pretty obvious to everyone, but Cogs, Whitfield and Green, straight in. And who's the other one that we might throw in?
Into GWS?
Yeah.
Brett Delidio?
Lids is the other one.
Would you play him?
Well, you know what I'm like.
You play everyone.
I just, if he's right to go, I'd play him.
You're the candy man. You're just handing out.
I am the candy man.
Yeah.
No, but that's what they need to win.
Yep.
To win. Because those 3 players, like you're impacting the middle of the ground, which we spoke about. You're actually Whitfield off halfback, Cogs through the middle, and Green. So you're actually adding one to each line.
So Green will be right because he's been suspended. He'll come in and play. Whitfield, appendicitis. I don't know much about that, but they're saying they're hopeful he's right.
Well, Leon in his press conference said he is a massive chance.
Okay.
Eddie Betts missed a week, I think.
Yeah, okay.
So
you get him up.
Keyhole surgery now. It's pretty
And
easy.
Cornelio's knee injury.
It's easy, is it?
Yeah, it's pretty just in and out. Just get it done.
Dr. Dixon. Burn it out. And Cornelio's knee injury, round 17, I think it was, that he hurt that. Do you back him in to be able to come in and have an impact straight away?
The way he's training at the moment, from all reports, I think he'd be an automatic inclusion.
He's just a font of knowledge tonight.
Well, just
Lethal weapon.
I'll get an ulcer if I keep this work up.
Can I touch on the Richmond side?
Yeah, I was going to go.
Yeah. What are your thoughts? I think Jack Riewoldt is the one that I know he's kicking some goals, okay, but he's kicking them at probably the wrong end of the game. I mean, there's no wrong time to kick goals, but he just seemed out of form the last couple of weeks. And I know he hit the scoreboard in Brisbane. I think he's kicked a 4 and what's he got? He got 0, 3, 4, 2 in the last month. So it's a number. There's a number of goals there. But if Jack and Tom Lynch can fire, I know it's you're a massive fan of the Tigers. You've talked about that already, but they're not going to be able to be clamped if they both fire. This forward line just could go crazy, Dicko, because Tom Lynch did it all by himself yesterday. Let's be honest. If he wasn't there,
A couple of good tap-ons from Jack Riewoldt.
yeah, he still does some things, but he's just out of form. I think he's a bit out of form, and he'd be the number one guy they'd be getting to this week. Saying, okay, let's have a look at some vision. Let's go back and look at some of your highlights. Let's get him up. Let's get him up, because even the post-match interview yesterday, he conceded that it's been a tough year for him. It's been a bit of a struggle. Coming back from injury is not something he's had to do very often through his career, and he's finding it really challenging. So I think that's their number one aim this week, is to make sure Jack's up and about for Saturday.
And I know he's out of form, as you said, but what I love about Jack, and as a decoy forward, I can actually comment on these guys. Well, when you're actually playing a role when you're not in form and you're not the man, like Tom Lynch is the man, you can actually influence the game much more than people can imagine or see. And he's doing things like you just mentioned, the tap off one, but his pressure and his chasing
Pressure was
and all
good.
that. It was
Yeah.
pressure was really good. So if I was Damien Hardwick and behind closed doors, knowing Dimmer well, tick for Jack, keep it going, because it'll turn.
I'm making a video. I'm getting a highlights video this week.
His video would be
Just go home.
amazing.
Just go home and watch this.
Yep.
Get yourself
Going back yourself.
But that's smart by like Richmond Footy Club. They get Tom Lynch in, so they're not relying on Jack anymore. And Jack's had his struggles with injury, and you said he's fighting his way through. I'll back him in next week, 100% that he's going to give effort, and the ball will fall his way. That's just what happens.
Well, the Tigers have a VFL grand final against Williamstown tomorrow. Are you considering a debutant potentially? Let's say if Jack Graham doesn't come up with his dislocated right shoulder.
I think
Martin Riggs.
I think that the Tigers would seriously look at Marlon Pickett. I really do. This is
We haven't had a grand final debutant since 1952.
No, I
It's
get
a
that,
massive
but
call.
Yeah, well, there's a spot available,
Candyman.
and no. This is a different sort of debutant. This guy, I think, is 27 years of age.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not like bringing a 19-year-old in. He knows how to play the game. His form's been really solid. I think it's a race in three between, I think it's Ross,
Stack.
Stack, and Marlon
Yeah,
Pickett. So we'll wait and see what happens tomorrow. But if one of them gets taken off at three-quarter time, you're pretty sure he's coming in.
You got a fab, because we're going to go fab and fail now. Dicko, something about the Giants.
My fab is their ability to retain their good players. And I say that, I know Dylan Shield left, but like Josh Kelly, Tim Taranto, Stephen Cornelio, 7 years, Harrison Himmelberg, Bobby Hill, which you love, we love Bobby, Toby Green, Nick Haynes, Sam Taylor, like their ability to keep their good players and their emerging players, I think tells a story about the Giants. It'd be easy. Everyone assumes that you want to leave. And these guys are staying because they see what we don't see. And we saw it tonight.
Can I just do a quick
Do whatever you want,
an
Kenny.
in-house fab? Because I reckon, given the 8 to 10 days that we've had with the Danny Frawley passing and the environment at Fox Sports and Fox Footy, those behind the camera as well as those in front of the camera have just stuck so fat. And sometimes it makes you proud to come into work, and it's a hard thing to. We don't often do it, Dicko, but I just think that everyone needs a pat in the back from our leadership all the way down. That it's been a sensational effort and a tough time for all.
Including you guys as well. You've been terrific in tough situations. Fail.
Fails. Oof.
Go to you first, Dicko. You can look at my sheet if you want.
Yeah, what did I write
Grand
down?
final tickets.
Oh, yeah, well, all the scalpers out there.
Scalpers.
Well, those blokes were just banking on Collingwood getting through, going, I'm going to get a trip to Caribbean. Well, it looks like you're going to U-Potty Popmont to swim, fish for carp.
What are you talking about?
Oh, the tickets were going to be enormous. And,
Yeah,
and they
okay.
were going to, these people out there that sell tickets for ridiculous price, well, you know what?
Yeah.
Giants
Yeah.
are in now. So that's a fail for
And
me.
your fail,
As a
Kingy?
personal one, I think, by the sound of it.
We've got to be quick here.
Tribunal for me.
Yeah, it just
I
hasn't
think they
worked.
let down they've actually put some emotion back into the week. There's no doubt about that. Toby out there high-fiving everyone today.
Yep.
But that was a fail for me. But it's been usurped today by the goal review system.
Arc.
The Arc.
Yeah, we'll
that
talk
your
about
fail?
That's absolutely my fail. Yeah, I'm looking forward to hopefully not talking about it next week because the grand final won't be affected. Quickly, a Brownlow winner for either of you. That's Monday night.
5 for me.
Dangerfield.
Ooh.
And a Premier margin.
I reckon he gets it by 2.
Premier.
No, Premier. Richmond.
Richmond by 2.
Yep.
2 points.
2 points.
Kingy, you.
Richmond by 20.
And a Norm Smith.
2 points.
Dusty.
Jack.
Awesome. You've been great.